Hey everyone, thank you for stopping by Brian for Liberty. And I just want to jump right in. I'm not even going to mess around. I want to thank everybody for coming in. Please like the video, please share the video, and please subscribe to the channel. Just trying to get to 200 here. Did not think I'd even be at 150 going into the weekend. So I'm super excited to be where I am. Want to keep growing. So again, please hit the subscribe button. And if you are so inclined, please share the content because that's what helps me the most. At this point, it's time. Can we stop pretending? Can we stop pretending that the protests and riots are still taking place, have anything to do with helping minorities or lifting black voices? Are we there yet as a nation? Are we going to keep pretending there's some virtue in blocking traffic and carrying signs? I mean, what's happening in Portland? These aren't peaceful demonstrations. These are the Portland riots. The Portland Federal Building is under constant siege. There's nothing here. There's nothing here to help black people. This has done nothing but hurt black people. Protesting the police has led to less policing, and there's murder rates are skyrocketing in these leftist cesspools all across the country. And it's time. When all the woke white folk head back to their little suburban neighborhoods, they're leaving this mess behind for the people who live in these communities to clean up. So we need to stop pretending that there's some virtue in what's going on out there. And I want to start first off by dispelling any notion that these are simply peaceful protests and that the violence is being initiated by the police. And I would just tell you, take a look at this video. And we can see that the police were just standing aside, allowing people to peacefully protest. And then you can see that a fire started in a vehicle, which ends the peaceful portion of this protest. And that's when the police decided now we have to disperse the crowd. You could hear them giving their warnings, disperse or be arrested. It was all there. It's all very clear, but that's not how it's pointed out to you. When mainstream media puts these videos on, what they're showing is the police hauling away peaceful protesters and pepper spraying people. That's not what's happening. The protests turn violent, then the police get involved. And when you saw the police just standing there, what do we think? They just lose their minds and go running into these crowds and shooting tear gas? That's not what's happening. You're getting a false narrative. Get away from the mainstream media and go search these protests. Go find your own videos and you'll see that the crowds are actually starting the violence. So we need to start right there. So the protests aren't peaceful. They're fully infiltrated by people hell-bent on starting violence every day. And where are the leaders of these movements? Where are these organizers denouncing the violence? Are they calling to end the protest by a certain time so that these instigators can't co-opt their movement? No. And you have to ask why. Wouldn't the organizers of these events want to protect the integrity of Black Lives Matter? Wouldn't they want to take the almost universal support they received in the wake of George Floyd's death? So broad was the support at the time that change could have actually really happened. The reason they're not doing anything about it, the reason they're not stopping the violence, the reason they're not even denouncing it is because change isn't the goal. And Black Lives Matter very little to the people instigating violence, and the leaders of this organization are trained Marxists, and that's not a conspiracy. That is their own words. Take a listen.
Black Lives Matter organization actually stand for? To find out, look no further than their leaders. Alicia Garza, Opal Tometi, and Patrisse Cullors. Here's Cullors in a revealing 2015 interview.
I actually do have an ideological frame. Myself and Alicia in particular are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists.
A trained Marxist isn't someone who agrees with Marx passively. These are people who know how to cause unrest, and that is their primary goal. A trained Marxist hates the West, hates capitalism, and will use anyone as cannon fodder to get to their goal and to take down this system. That is the goal of a trained Marxist. And when you look at Black Lives Matter, they've done very little to lift the black community. They walk hand in hand with Antifa, and other than dividing the country, you can't point to what they've accomplished. I've done another video on Black Lives Matter, right? Take take a look at it, and I kind of walk through what Black Lives Matter has failed to accomplish. And when you have that much momentum and that much support, why? The only reason why is that the goal isn't to initiate change, and the goal is not to help people, particularly minorities. So you've got these Portland LARPers on the street, antagonizing the police, starting violence, and it's all for black people. I look at these protests, and it's all white people walking. You got a tiny little percentage of African Americans in these groups. It's all white people. And since they care so much about black people, I can only imagine that like mentorship programs like Big Brothers, Big Sisters are so flooded with money and donations and volunteers that they don't even know what to do with themselves. I mean, that would be my thought. There's hundreds of thousands of people all across the country who are crying out to do something for the black community. So I was stunned when I called my own local Big Brothers, Big Sisters chapter, which disproportionately helps people of color, mentoring children born into single households, which is a crisis in the black community that we're not allowed to talk about, and find that they didn't have enough money to keep their doors open, and they can't take any more applications here in the county that I live in because I was volunteering to be a big. That's how I found out. I don't understand. You're all crying. You all love the black community so much. I see your profile pics. I see your Black Fist profile pics. I see your Black Lives Matter banners all over Facebook. I don't understand. So I guess if I went to Portland, all these LARPers out there on the streets doing all these things, they love black people so much. I can only imagine that the black churches are just full. The pews are full of people coming into the community to learn how they can roll up their sleeves and do some real work. But I think we all know that that's not the case. I think we all know that that's not true. Your virtue signaling on the street is perfectly fine if it's backed by action, and it's not. So go home, Portland. Close it down. Your protests aren't for black people. They're for you. They're to make you feel good. And all you're doing is harming the black community. And another fascinating part of this movement to me, as a person of color who's experienced it himself, is how important it is that a person of color goes along with the Black Lives Matter narrative. I mean, it is absolutely critical. We all know the numbers. I've hit them before. 44% of homicides in this country are black on black. Can you believe that? 13% of the population represents 44% of the homicides. Thousands of dead blacks every year. I'm just going to let that hang for a second. Thousands of dead blacks every year. Try and talk to a BLM supporter about that. Try that conversation out. Now, the defense is that that's not what Black Lives Matter is about. That's not what these protests are about. But my question is, why do you call yourselves Black Lives Matter? You can't call yourselves Black Lives Matter. It's in the name. You can't call yourselves Black Lives Matter and ignore thousands of black deaths every year. Your movement is blacks against police brutality against blacks. These are what the Portland protests are about. Supposedly. They're not. People in Portland are protesting because they're Marxists and they want to tear down the system. That's why the people in Portland are protesting. But why do you call yourselves Black Lives Matter if you don't want to talk about the number one cause of preventable black death? In terms of homicides, it's not at the hands of the police. It's the hands of other blacks. There's something going on in the community. We know that it's an outsized representation in terms of the size of the black community in this country. So why don't we want to talk about it? I don't know. Don't call yourselves Black Lives Matter then. I mean, as tragic as each death is, as unjustified as police brutality is, it's also incredibly rare. Police are wearing body cams all over the country now. And listen carefully to this part. There are millions of interactions every year between blacks and police. Not hundreds, not thousands, not tens of thousands. There are millions of interactions every single year between all of us and police, but in particular the black community and police. They're interacting millions of times a year. There should be tens of thousands of cases of obvious police brutality, of obvious police overstepping their bounds, of using unjustified force. There should be thousands, tens of thousands of these cases, obvious, all the time, and they're not, because this is an incredibly rare thing that's happening, which is perfect. If you're a Marxist movement and you want to protest with the primary purpose of disrupting Western capitalism and take down the system, you want something as divisive as possible. So you're going to get people like me and white people to engage in a way that makes it sound as if we don't care about police brutality. So you pick something like this and it's perfect because it's just divisive enough. The George Floyd video is incredibly tragic. It's a horrible thing to watch. A lot of it was held back. We know that the new video is out now, but a lot of it was held back. And so it's a perfect video. It feeds perfectly into the system. And then you're going to have people do the numbers and you're going to shout those people down as racist. And it's amazing. It's amazing. And it's working. And now let's talk about black voices. And let's see, here's a tolerant Black Lives Matter supporter who clearly loves black people. I mean, just listen.
Deal with that.
He's not a black person.
Yes, he is.
What? What color is? Wait, Ben Carson isn't black.
Whitewash.
What university you from? What university you from?
Whitewash. He is a dimwit.
Ben Carson, a neurosurgeon, is a dimwit.
Yeah, he is.
So according to your reality, Ben Carson is a whitewashed dimwit. In reality, he's an African-American neurosurgeon, ma'am.
He's a neurosurgeon, but he's good at one thing. You know what I mean?
What?
Ben Carson is not black. He is a dimwit. You may want to back that up and watch that video again because the only blackface in that group is the kid getting yelled at by some leftist Karen. Not only that, but you may disagree with Ben Carson's politics, but this is a black neurosurgeon, a man raised by a poor single mom who, guess what, worked his ass off and became a renowned neurosurgeon, presidential candidate, and eventual Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. And it's the kind of story that the left hates. They may say that they love black people, but they don't want to hear about black success, not outside of sports, because it destroys the narrative. So these people, these protesters, in the name of Black lives, are going to shout down a black voice that dissents with them because they don't want that. And again, it just points out that this is about division. It's not about helping black people. And one of the most dangerous things, if your goal is division, especially along racial lines, and you're using a racial group as pawns, it's very dangerous for your group if the pawns walk away. Because if you want to see real hate and real racism, watch how white people, white liberals, respond to black people and people of color who don't agree with them. Oh, their voices aren't heard. Believe me. So for over 70 straight days, these LARPers in Portland have taken to the streets. They've incited violence, not to help black people, not to lift black voices, but to spread chaos. And it's time for it to end. I'm disappointed, quite frankly, that the federal troops were pulled out. And I know as a libertarian, people are going to raise their eyebrows and say, that's not very libertarian of you. These people are starting the violence. These people are interfering with other people's ability to live their lives. And the run of the roles of government is to protect liberty, right? The person who can't drive the street isn't interfering with anybody's liberty. The people blocking the streets are interfering with other people's liberty, okay? They're starting the violence. They're defacing property. They need to be stopped. That's a proper role of government. It's one of the few proper roles of government. So it's not anti-libertarian for me to say, yeah, the government needs to go in there and stop this. And if local authorities aren't willing to do it, then the federal government, the state government isn't willing to do it, then yes, even the federal government needs to step in and take care of this. There's a Department of Homeland Security, and that's what it exists for. So I know that sounds anti-libertarian of me. I know that's not the libertarian message, anti-government message, but you have to stop destruction. That is a fundamental role of government. So once again, stuck on this topic, and this is it. I'm not doing any more Black Lives Matter videos, which is probably a lie. I'll probably do some more Black Lives Matter videos, but I'm going to try not to. I'm going to try and get back to what the purpose of this channel was, which is to talk about economics and to educate. With that in mind, please, on Sunday, I'm going to be doing a live stream on Thomas Sowell's Basic Economics. I'm really looking forward to some conversation, so if you're able to jump on and chat a bit, that would be amazing. It'll be on Sunday, and I'm shooting for start right at noon. I know it's right in the middle of the day on Sunday, but quite honestly, I'm a little nervous about live streaming. So at the end of the day, I don't want a huge audience, which I don't think I have to worry about too much. But I will be talking about Thomas Sowell's book, Basic Economics. It's an amazing book. It's an incredible critique and defense of capitalism. It really can serve as a critique of the capitalist system we're in right now, while at the same time defend actual free market capitalism. So I think it's going to be a really good conversation. I hope you'll stop by. Once again, thank you for coming. Thank you for watching the video. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. And if you really like the content, please share it because that's going to help me grow. Thank you so much. And as always, we will see you next time.